morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm here with Claudia Vaccaro, who is Senior Revenue Manager with Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, Senior Revenue Manager of the Americas, both the southern and northern part of the Americas. Am I right?
You're right. Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we used to work together a long time ago in the Four Seasons. I have always thought the revenue management position is interesting. I think the hotel business is interesting because most people don't necessarily really understand the business. So I would love to hear from you. Can you explain a bit of the structure of hotels?
Yes. So every hotel brand is a little different, but I'll speak with Four Seasons and some of the bigger brands as well. So most of the hotels are owned individually by an owner, and sometimes an owner can have up to 5 or 8 properties or even more than that. And the brand manages the hotels.
Okay.
So we don't own the hotels. We have individual owners, asset management teams.
Yeah.
And we manage the brand.
So Four Seasons doesn't own any hotels?
No, they do
right.
not.
So if I understand this right, so if we put this in the context of maybe like a tenant. So if I'm a tenant, in the hotel world, we call me a guest.
Yeah.
As a tenant, I pay rent to a property manager. That property manager is the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And the person who owns the condo I live in is the owner of that hotel.
Correct.
So it's a little bit different than, because most people will think, well, Four Seasons owns all these hotels, but that's actually not the case at all.
So we charge a management fee that is based on the number of rooms that a hotel has or a resort.
Okay.
And it's also market-based, and we've got, international locations. So depending on where a hotel is located, the fees will be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So the owner pays us a monthly management fee.
Yeah.
And essentially, as a company, we are managing both the expenses, but we're also trying to make as much money for the owner as possible.
So do you know, like, management fees, like what percentage are we talking about here? How is it structured?
I don't know that I can actually say exactly what the numbers are, but I will say this. For luxury brands, the percentages are very high because the service that we provide is excellent. So in a brand like Four Seasons, you would be looking at, without giving you exact numbers, but, $500,000 a month and upwards from that. Like it's not cheap.
Right. It's not cheap to have Four Seasons operate your building. It's
not cheap.
And
no.
It shouldn't be, right?
No.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Four Seasons brand? Because the reality is most of us will not in our lifetime experience the Four Seasons brand in an intimate way. Maybe we'll experience it a couple times, but it is a premium product in the marketplace. It's the Ferrari or the Maserati or whatever. I don't know what the fanciest is, but
I don't know either, but I know that Four Seasons is pretty fancy. But the company is based on the golden rule, which I think is really key, because the company's been built on the concept that what we provide is the highest of service and the highest of quality, but at the same time, it's not pretentious. So our founder is Canadian. I think many people don't know that either. And his concept was that he just wanted to provide the absolute best in product and in service.
Right.
And a focus on service more so than product, to be honest, but a combination of both.
Right.
That sets us apart. I mean, there's no other brand that has that culture base.
Right.
From the start, from the very, very beginning, that has kept that.
Yeah.
And that's what our customers know us for and love us for.
Yeah.
It's very different when you stay at a Four Seasons, and I've been fortunate to stay at other luxury brands, and there's many, many good ones. But there is a genuine difference in the people that work at Four Seasons, and that's what makes it stand apart.
Yeah. Not that we're proud of ourselves for working for Four Seasons, but I guess it says something about us, doesn't it?
Well, and I guess
you lasted a lot longer than I did, though.
It is the people, though. It really is the people, because you can teach people tasks. You can teach somebody how to do a task, but you can't teach somebody how to be truly genuine.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you kind of talked about quality, product and service, something that Isidore Sharp, the founder, has really sent that message home, and he's an inspiring individual. So can you talk about the relationship between the price someone pays and the quality of the product or service that they might receive?
So, yes, I can.
Thank you. It was more of a demand than a request, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, whatever price you set out for, and we're talking about hotels here, so we'll speak about hotel room pricing. There's an expectation from the customer once they come as to what the experience will be like, but it's tied to the service as well as the actual room and the building itself. So when you're spending $700 plus a night, and in a lot of our locations it's $1,000, $1,200, and so on and so forth, you're not just buying the room, you're not just buying the suite, you're buying the arrival experience, the lobby, the pool, the spa, everything that comes in between, and all the interactions that you're having with the staff. And that has to be at a high quality, if you're charging those rates, because otherwise the customer won't come back, word of mouth, and that's also how Four Seasons has done so well is the quality that we deliver is consistent, but it's not just in the actual product, it's the service.
So how much is your pricing model as a revenue manager? How much is your pricing model telling the customer about the quality? I guess what I'm asking is pricing an indicator of quality? The more expensive the room or the hotel, the greater the quality?
I mean, not always. Okay. But typically speaking, the pricing of anything reflects what the quality is. Yeah. So, but I mean, you have to be careful as well that you're not being greedy. Yeah. I mean, the good news in a company like Four Seasons is we're given guidance, and typically we're the leaders in a market. But that sets the expectation for the consumer. Yeah.
So what kind of rates, like you manage Bora, that's going to be one of the greatest, most exclusive destinations in the world as an island and as a small nation. Yeah. So you manage a hotel like that. What kind of rates are we talking about here? What's the range?
So in low season, you would be looking at, and this is in euros because it's under the French colony. Yeah. So in low season, entry level $950 to $1,250 euro, and then in high season, starting at $1,500, going upwards to $2,000 for a standard beach overwater bungalow.
Okay, and and the big suites.
The big suites could go up to $20,000, $30,000, depending on their villas. They're actually beach villas.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say the word suite.
It's not in Tahiti. It's not a suite. It's a bungalow or a beach villa. Yeah, they could go up to 30,000.
30,000 euros.
Yeah, a night. Yeah, and I mean
during like $50,000 or something.
Yeah, that's just about. And I mean, there's taxes and fees on top of that.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are.
And
I'm sure you charge us for Wi-Fi and parking our private jet on the airstrip as well.
We charge just about everything we can. It's a business, right?
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about what is a revenue manager? What do you do? What decisions do you make?
So in a nutshell, it's funny, a lot of people ask me this because a lot of people don't know, what the job is. Yeah. And the best way to describe it in kind of a one-liner, and I can go into a tangent on this, but our responsibility is to make the owner as much money as possible, in a nutshell. I take it a step further. Having employees employed, having everybody work as much as possible, that also motivates me. So we are trying to not only fill the hotels from an occupancy standpoint, but we're also trying to maximize revenues. Yeah. So we control the room pricing, which is tied really to everything else. The rooms are the most profitable. So the rooms are about 80% profitable. Everything else is at a 20 to 40%, just to put things in perspective. Yeah. So food and beverage, we don't spend a ton of time on food and beverage only because it just is what it is, and there's such a high cost with food. Yeah. But things like banquets, weddings, spa, golf, there's a lot more to be had there. Yeah. But the primary focus is always on rooms. So we price everything, and we're constantly watching demand and ensuring that we're maximizing every day.
How many times would you be changing the average hotel rates in a week?
Oh gosh. So we work with artificial intelligence, and that system, it's like a robot essentially, and we work with it on a daily, weekly basis. It can change the rates up to 5 times a day.
5 times a day.
Yeah. And it's the same system that the airlines use.
So if I go check a rate at the Four Seasons today, don't book, and I go back tomorrow, is there a chance that the rates could be higher because I've demonstrated interest in the hotel?
Technically, yes, but it wouldn't be because you, from your IP address, showed demand or showed interest. It would be because, maybe all of a sudden 50 people have booked in the last 2 hours, and the system and I see a spike in demand.
Yeah.
So things like that will cause fluctuations.
So why do you need to work if we have AI doing some of this for us?
Great question.
Where's your job security here?
Great question. Because AI can only go so far, truly, especially in a company in a big brand like Four Seasons, and that we're focused on, like I said, service as well as the product. But there's always a human element, and actually, what's happening right now with COVID is an excellent example. AI has no idea what's going on right now, and as much as we can help it and manipulate it and override the system and tell it kind of what's going on, it doesn't know that this is a pandemic.
Right.
It doesn't understand how long it'll last,
right.
So on and so forth. So the human aspect is huge. And also for Four Seasons, the human part in Four Seasons carries the brand. So we want our certain price positioning to be at a certain level. The system doesn't exactly know that.
So during COVID, the world stops traveling. Does Four Seasons drop their rates to bottom to get people in the door?
No.
Why not?
My God, this has been such a big topic for the last 4 months. And I've sat on so many calls about this. And we've looked at different models from 9/11, from the financial crisis in 08, SARS, 03. And it's proven time and time again that in any market, any brand that has lowered pricing to get demand, it takes you years. When I'm talking years, 5, 8, 10, 12 years to recover.
Wow.
Because once you've bottomed out and you've gotten that customer used to the new pricing, you have to slowly build back. And
right.
that road is steep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the customers then get used to paying this cheap price because there's no demand, and then they don't want to pay the high rates next year or the year after.
That's right. And going back to your question about quality, it diminishes the quality.
Right.
So if you do that, all of a sudden you're telling your guests, and we often compare to like a Louis Vuitton or a Cartier, and you don't see Louis Vuitton on sale. There's a reason for that.
I mean, I haven't been in there much, but I haven't noticed anything for sale.
Well, there's no sales there, I can tell you that. Because why would you buy a bag at $2,000 when it's on sale for $500 during this time? Like, lowering prices right now isn't going to get people on a plane.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because the price isn't the issue right now.
It's not
Safety
the
is an issue.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, you could say the opposite, and we want to be careful that we're not price gouging. But what we're finding right now is the people who are willing to travel, they will pay anything.
Right. They want
Apparently, the rich are bored. That's what I keep hearing.
They want to get on their jet and get there.
They do.
And they'll self-isolate, I guess, in a villa in Bora.
In Bora, yeah.
Like, give me French Polynesia, I'm there.
Right.
I'd do it.
Yeah,
If you're talking to anyone and they're like, hey, we got an extra seat on our jet, let me know. I'll jump on board.
Actually, what's one of the most popular destinations right now is Lanai in Hawaii, the private island of Lanai. A lot of wealthy people and famous people have gone there to quarantine during this time.
Really?
They're doing better than they ever have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, I guess, Americans, because they don't need to.
That's right.
Because it's in the same country.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so just to clarify, Americans, wealthy Americans.
Right.
Yeah, they're parking at the Four Seasons Lanai. I know.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So everyone's got a job there still. Well, that's good
They
news.
do, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about price skimming and market penetration. So these are two terms that we often talk about in marketing classes. So what do these things mean to you, and is this something that you guys would engage in the Four Seasons?
Yes and no. I guess we would do more of the skimming versus the penetration.
Right.
Because I think what's different with hotels and just with anything travel related, like seats on a plane.
Yeah.
Not like a product, they expire every day.
Yeah.
So with a product, you can do skimming and or penetration. I mean, the penetration one is the penetration approach, it's much riskier, because if you're not watching closely and making sure that over time you're actually increasing as you go along, there's a really, really high risk for that.
Right.
And from a perception standpoint, it also, again, it just gives that the perceived value of a product, especially a hotel room or a seat on a plane. If you start low, it's very hard to get high.
Right.
If you start high, there's a lot more flexibility
Right.
to come down.
I remember when I was working at Four Seasons, and we, people would come in late at night and try to get a deal on a room, because it's like, well, the room's going to go vacant, right? And the public knows that.
Yeah.
But because of the brand, we couldn't go below a certain point or whatever, because you don't want to give a room away for $100 just because. Now, it'd be beneficial for the hotel from a financial perspective, I guess. $100 is better than no dollars, but it does diminish the brand.
Yes, and yes and no. So one of the things that we are always measuring is the cost of selling a room.
Yeah.
And servicing a room. And in luxury hotels, and this is the difference between, luxury versus more of an economy class, a 2 or 3 star. So on average, to give you an example, our cost of servicing a room, including labor, benefits, and everything for our employees, can range between $150 and $500 depending on the location and the size of the room.
500.
Yeah, $500 for a suite, and actually it can go higher.
Wow.
Like a residence that we would rent out, it could be $1,500, the cost of servicing that room.
Wow.
So if we're not selling it for, we at least have to sell it for $2,500 to make something off of that room.
Yeah.
So that's always also what we're looking at, and something that I think a lot of people don't think about.
Of course.
And in a luxury brand, again, that pays well, that has really great benefits for its people, the cost is much higher. And then all the amenities, we use L'Occitane products, which are a luxury. It's a luxury.
And people fill their pockets with that kind of stuff.
They do.
And I'm sure you do too when you go there.
Well,
I mean, we won't admit that, will we?
Don't tell anyone.
Like, you see they don't use maid carts at Four Seasons, right? Because people steal the products too much.
That's right. Yeah. My dad being one of them. My dad would rate the maid carts. Yeah. It's true.
He always came to every hotel with an empty suitcase and came home with a full one somehow.
He did.
It's like, oh, we got some pillows and some robes this time.
I mean, it's not cheap L'Occitane. It's very expensive. Yeah.
That's great. So when you guys launch a new hotel, you're in maybe a new market, what type of approach do you use when it comes to pricing?
So again, this is, you're given direction from your brand. And actually I can speak to, I used to work for Fairmont, and I opened Fairmont Pacific Rim here in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So you're first and foremost given direction from the brand as to what is the positioning that the hotel is going to take.
Yep.
Lots of research is done, usually, 12, 18 months of research based on the market, the demographic. Obviously, it opened during the Olympic Games, so that was a big piece of it. And it's all about what is the owner's vision of that hotel. And the owner of Pac Rim is a local here, so he was very involved in the positioning of that property. And from there, it was, well, what differentiates the property in this market, and how high a value is the product? So the finishings in the rooms and everything that particular property offers. And as an example, Fairmont Pacific Rim's lobby, the restaurant, the pool, the spa. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. There's an art collection in there. I mean, there's a lot of details that went into it. So all of those things come into play, along with where is the brand at in terms of positioning. And then from there, it's taking the approach of where do we want to be the market leader? Do we want to come in a little bit lower than, say, the Shangri-La or the Rosewood to attract that, lower price customer base? It's a combination of things, but first and foremost, the owner and the brand come to terms with where do we want this hotel to sit?
Right.
And then we take it from there.
I would say one of the most perfect customer experiences I've ever had in my life was at the Fairmont Pacific Rim.
Okay.
Yeah. So
great.
I've stayed at a few Four Seasons and Rosewood. My wife used to work for Rosewood Hotels, and so I've been to some nice places as an employee, staying there for free. And went to Pacific Rim and went to the spa, the Willowstream Spa.
Yeah.
And I often think about this. I was like one of the only times it was like flawless. Everything hit the mark for me. And I respect Fairmont Pacific Rim for that, because I think that is a very difficult thing to do, especially to someone who is like in the business where you're like looking for mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So well done to you and your team.
Thank you.
It was expensive.
I'll take that compliment. Yeah. Well, there you go. But the price matched it. There you go. It matched your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Good.
So high-low pricing and everyday low pricing. What do these terms mean to you, and are these strategies that you would use in your hotel or other hotels?
With Four Seasons, no. We technically follow the high-low pricing, if you will, or no, I wouldn't say low. I would say high mid-range.
Yeah.
Usually in a non-COVID world, there are certain factors like citywide conventions, concerts, sporting events that will create a natural base for the flow of when it's really busy and when it's not. So we price based on demand. When there is very high demand, again, in a non-COVID world. So when there's high demand, we're priced very high. And when there's low demand, we're priced, again, I won't say low, but we're priced
lower. Right.
Low everyday pricing is more for an economy class type hotel. Full service wouldn't. You can't really. It's just not in the same world.
So you're talking like a Motel 6 or a Super 8 type of place.
Yeah, that's like low everyday pricing. Like I think of No Frills or something of that concept.
Maybe you'll work at one of those hotels soon.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
What if they were like, hey, Motel 6 is hiring a CEO and they want you?
No. I can't do it. It's not part of my DNA.
No comp nights.
Can't
no comp night value there. Okay, that's good. So now when we talk about ethics and pricing, have you ever been in a situation where you're like, okay, I think what we're doing is, maybe I don't want to, because I don't want you to speak negatively about your brand or have to. But so do you think about ethics when it comes to pricing?
Yes.
Do you think about, okay, this is unethical, this is not, let's go this direction? Or maybe you experience unethical pricing as a consumer, like as an expert in pricing, you go somewhere and you're like, that's unethical, or this is great.
So, this is a big topic. So, my job in revenue management is to purely look at data. And from that standpoint, it is ethical because we understand, as an example, a suite in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. So a customer has paid $2,500 for it consistently. So we understand that someone is willing to pay that price.
Yeah.
Can we push the envelope and put the maximum pricing at $4,000? When we're making those decisions, there's a leadership team at each hotel. We truly have a moment of like, can we actually sit with that? Like, does that,
right,
are we comfortable with that? I bring the data, but then there is an ethical moment of,
like, are you gouging?
Exactly. Are we price gouging? Which, and people could argue that, a luxury brand does price gouge, but when there is demand, when someone is willing to pay the price, it's ethical.
Right.
But we always know our limits. And it's interesting, actually, in Seattle, we just we've got 2 presidential suites there. And consistently over the last little while, we had customers that would book one of the 2 and tell us upon departure that they felt it wasn't worth it. So the front office team let me know, and they said, we think there's a problem with the pricing of this suite.
Right.
Customers keep complaining about it.
Interesting.
So that to me right there is a perfect example of, we've had it priced at a certain position, consumers saying we don't value that, so we've taken it down, and now there's no issues. So there always has to be ethics, because otherwise you're not running your business the right way.
How much do you see the customer, the guest, willing to pay outrageous amounts of money just because they want to tell their friends? I stayed in Bora for whatever it was, 30,000 euros a night, and that is a point of pride for them because they're, in that echelon of wealth. Yep. Does that exist?
It does happen, and it happens a lot. It happens over big events, big concerts like a Rolling Stones or a Pearl Jam in a major city, or a big NFL game, or it's New Year's Eve on a Saturday night and you're going to Bora Bora for the 7 nights. And I think that what I've really learned is that people value different things at different times, and there are moments when, as a business, you can really capitalize on that, and that is part of our job. So when there are a lot of people like that out there, and it's typically when there's a special event. People's egos get involved, and we are a business, and we will capitalize on that.
So I think maybe just to understand a little bit more personally about you, you work in Vancouver from
Yeah.
your house
Yeah.
for hotels around the world.
Yes.
You're not there talking to the customers.
No.
So how do you make that decision without the kind of the daily feedback, or how do you know what people are saying? You kind of referenced a little bit earlier, but
Yeah.
how does that happen?
Well, and actually being removed from the property is good because then I'm not making any emotional decisions.
Right.
That's actually really key. We
You're
don't want to
cold.
make.
You're a cold person.
No, we don't. But we don't want to make emotional decisions. We want to be thinking very strategically. So I have meetings with the hotels daily. So I'm always consistently talking to them.
Yeah.
But also we are running analytics. I'm running analytics all day long. My team's running analytics all day long, and really, I'm looking at data and studying the data, and based on the data, historical and what's currently happening. And again, right now with COVID, everything from a moment a hotel has reopened, it's literally like we just opened for the first time. So anything from the last 10 years just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And it's literally every 2 to 3 days, I'm literally reviewing everything, going, what are we learning and what can we tweak and change to continue maximizing revenues?
Right.
And then I get the feedback from the people actually on site that can say things like, hey, you changed our presidential suite pricing, customers don't like it, we got to change this.
That's great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I found this super interesting and
Good.
educational.
Great.
And
It's great.
I'm sure everybody watching will agree with me. That's great. I think you come from a business that we know about. We stay in hotels, but we don't know how it operates, and I think that was super educational. So I appreciate your time, Claudia.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thanks.